Chapter 1. The Fall. With strength, I remember. With breath, I endure. In stillness, I am reborn. The familiar words offer no comfort. Regardless of how tightly I squeeze my eyes shut, my coal-laden lids neither shield me from the tongues of fire burning before me, or contain the welling tears threatening to break my dam of grief. One escapes, to run down my cheek, losing itself in my beard. Oh, how I too wish I could run. Hide from the blaze that illuminates each flaw and convicts my every failure. Truth destroys the brittle, but tempers the brave. How many times did I say it to him? How many lessons must I give and believe, from my soul's stability to my tiara of tranquility, and still not abide in their merit? I can't escape the truth, and my desire to do so only reveals my weakness. The weight of the rolled papyrus in my pocket sinks me deeper into the stone step before the altar. The plate of my knee protests the unyielding limestone and the passage of time against it. But I dare not move, for if I do, I might shatter like the glass of a fossilized sandstar. I inhale sharply, sniffling what I can and wiping what I can't with the back of my hand. The popping and cracking sandalwood, consumed by creation's fire, should bring me peace on this fourth and final day of mourning. It does not. The sweet fragrance of frankincense and spice of myrrh meant to purify the air surrounding the altar fills my nostrils, but they are wasted. For the body on the altar needs no purification. He is pristine, perfect, just as he was when his mother first bore him to this fallen world. 4 nights and 3 days in the miasma. By all rights, the ivory chakram who culled the fiend spawned in the noxious wastes should have found him a ruin. Flesh stripped from bent and broken bones, horror scorched on his face to immortalize his last moments of terror. I opened my eyes to find my boy. Cold, silent, still. But by sand and stars, he is whole. Too pure for the corrupted beasts and mutilated men driven mad by the miasma. He withstood the moss-myths and muslings for 4 nights and 3 days, and left unblemished. His body, whole. His soul, departed. I deny reality, but the truth lies before me. No energy flows within his Ashahai cores to circulate the current of life that moves through all sentient beings. The stillness suffocates. Black curls nestle atop his unwrinkled brow, riding the tides of the wind's gentle waves. His cheeks smooth, his lips slightly parted, as if he were about to speak. Long lashes stretch from closed eyes. Would that they would open one more time. Would that he would prop himself up to scowl with his mother's amber glare and tell me, explain to me, why. He won't. My boy, my rising sun and beating drum, is gone. And all that I have left on this 4th and final day of his pyre is this note. His why. That I fear by the forge, I will never understand. My shoulders crumple as my foundation falters. Tears smear my smudged coal and fall to stain black the white of my linen trousers. My forehead rests on the stone slab my son's body lays upon. I wipe my cheeks with the back of my hand, though it too is stained. At the time, when the Ventari Magi tattooed the black sun upon the back of my palm, I wasn't sure if it was my greatest pride or my deepest shame. I still don't know. But here, before Taraj's still and silent body, it could only ever reach the second step atop my podium of despair. No father should kneel before their son's final flame. A hand upon my shoulder wakes the sandstars from their burrows. Nika, all sandstone brawn and stoic as the miasma, affords me the slightest quirk of her brow, in time with a firm squeeze of my arm. The Huvaran summers have aged her in the decades since she fled Cadel's walls and traversed the miasma as a young woman, but the iron of her grip has only been tempered by time's forge. The beads in her braids clink as she tilts her head and contorts the crescent scar on her upper lip with a grimace. Final day. I grunt, pushing myself to my feet. 4 days, 4 nights tending the final flame. I should be ready to say farewell, to allow the funeral bearers to take Taraj to the Tower of Silence, where his body can rest, and his soul can return to the Arati currents. I hang my head, stroking my beard as I admire Taraj for what could be one of my final opportunities. Only 4 days. I scoff at the incredulity. The monks and sisters tended pyres for 4 years after the Devas fell. Nika's hand slips from my arm. She purses her lips and releases a slow breath. She wasn't speaking of Taraj. I incline my gaze to the arched canopy before the entrance into the Zerkana that's been in my family for 963 years. For nearly a millennium, these walls bore witness as boys became men, and men became champions. Not just of sport or strength, but of what it meant to do good, do right, for all. How many sick were healed within this house of strength? How many without homes were sheltered when the sandstorms swept through? How many hungry were fed, or orphans were shown decency? This storied past predates the divine age, when the Kavali Devas yet walked among mortals. And yet Sunstar Zerkana, though it has stood since the founding of Uvara, would fall from memory under my stewardship. No longer will the weighted song shield teach resilience's constitution. No longer will the Shena push-up board guide future Palevans in the ways of fortune's grace. Never again will the iron bow Kabata instruct Solace's peace, or the heavy wooden meals tutor pupils in innovation's transformative power. The final day. With Taraj missing, I'd all but forgotten. When the funeral bearers returned him to me, I'd nearly ceased to care. Why stand against the Ventari, when all it's ever done has brought me heartache? 64 years, to the day, since the fall, or the true dawn, depending on who you ask. And 64 years of attempting to hold on to a past the eternal Shah wishes to strike from the annals of history. Not that it matters now. I avert my gaze from the Kavali Deva's depiction, etched into the reliefs of the curved stone ceiling to Taraj, hoping, praying, he will wake, and his Ashahai course will churn once again. But he doesn't. And soon, this temple of Kavali virtue will be the last to fall to the Ventari wave. as dead and lifeless as my son. Doesn't matter anymore. She fixes me with a gaze coarse as sand and sharp as iron. Of course it matters, Iskander. She calls me by name, not the title of Morshed I am due under this roof as its spiritual leader and the teacher of its pupils. But of all the times I could have and didn't take a stand, this instance pales in comparison. Pale is the ivory garb of the Ventari elites, sworn to protect the people from the fiends of the miasma. Pale is the face on the altar before me. Iskander. Nika waits for me to retort, but I have none to give. All I have is a dwindling pyre, a dead son, and a home about to be taken from me. Not with maces and shamshirs, but with heavy taxation and political coercion. Not for the first time. I wish the Ventari would have come with force. But that is not their way. Diplomacy. A fanciful word for bleeding one dry, of dignity rather than life. I can't find it in me to respond. Ever patient, Nika waits, arms crossed and wide-stanced, as several of my students offered their last respects to Taraj's pyre. The Arati flows, Morshed, Dari says, tapping his third eye, then his chin, before bowing deeply. He is with the Devas now. I embrace Dari, as I have his father before him, even if his sentiment makes my shield of shelter clench to defend itself. I inhale, dispelling the tension forming in my throat, and force a smile that threatens to cramp the muscles of my cheeks. Gratitude, Dari. Morshed, where will we go tomorrow? Dari asks. What will we do when the Ventari come? I can't bring myself to say it. Odds are he will return on the morrow, as will his father, his brother, their cousins, their neighbors, and every soul that takes time out of their day to train the Palavani arts in Gadaston. But it will not be me who beats the drum, directs the movements, or calls upon them to do good and right for others. And whoever they call Morshed will not tend pyres to the Devas, but to the eternal Shah. Nika motions Dari away, and not for the first time. I wonder how long ago I would have lost this Zarkana without her. Another offering, another pleasantry, another forced smile. It breaks my heart, because this is not just the death of my son, as if that wasn't enough. This is the end of our fate, the end of our history. I don't know which law should hold the greater leverage, but both, in their own right, bend me to the point of breaking. The final day. How long before the four towers and the domed canopy etched with depictions of the Devas are torn down? How long before they're replaced with a single spire engraved with the crowned spear of the eternal Shah? The pit in my stomach knots. Shame, guilt, and dread coil like the roots of iron willow beneath the surface of the placid exterior I feign to display. I track the sun's arc across the sky, wishing time away, which only further dredges my grief. Apologies, Morshed, an old man says in an accent I can't place. He removes his veil and spreads his open palms. He bows before I can identify him, but upon initial inspection, I don't recognize him. He's not of my flock. Gratitude. Kuda. I give him the formal honorific in place of not knowing his name. Ani. He stands to his full, albeit stooped, height, removing his turban to reveal wisps of once rusty hair, turned ashen over time. It clings to his liver-spotted scalp. His beard is patchy, more rust than ash, and not long enough to bother oiling. Judging by his pale complexion, he might hail from Glavonia to the north, or perhaps Scythia to the east. But he is no native to Amara, perhaps not even Denegon. Gratitude, Ani, I say, too weary to indulge the man further. But he doesn't leave after paying his respects. Ani's brows pinch as his dried and cracked lips purse. He steps closer, his sandaled feet shuffling. I must speak with you, Moshed. In private. I search for Nika, hoping she will rescue me again. I should be more gracious, explain the truth, that the Zarkana will be overtaken by a new Ventari Morshed. But I don't have the heart for it. I force a smile. Tomorrow. Come back tomorrow, Ani. The old man gives me a knowing grin, traced with a sullenness that must mirror my own. Later then, Moshed. He bows, deeper than any man his age should attempt to. Apologies for your loss. He glances at Taraj, lingering, as if he knew him since he waddled his first steps, or spoke his first word. He was a courageous soul. My lips move, attempting to keep pace with my sluggish mind as I struggle to form the myriad of questions competing for the right to reach my tongue. None emerge victorious. Instead, I babble as Ani begins to walk away. I reach for him, but another calls with fast-approaching footfalls, redirecting my focus. Meris, fleet of foot and as timely as a sandstorm, parts the line of flame tenders offering their respects. In the years since the young Dahi traveler planted his roots here at Sunstar, he has been a quick study. But now, his dark eyes are wide, and his lips, typically stretched in a grin, pucker, withholding grim news. I glance over my shoulder, searching for Ani, but the old enigma has disappeared into the crowd, leaving me with more questions unlikely to be answered. Exhaling through my nostrils, I place my hands on my hips. What is it, Meris? More spice accompanies my tone than it ought to. I wince, even if Meris doesn't, at least in the moment. He doesn't look like Taraj, and he's not the only boy of a similar age to study beneath my roof. In truth, he's nothing like my boy. Reckless where Taraj was, careful. Outspoken in place of soft-spoken. But there is something about this Dahi that wandered from the Kigari desert and into my heart that reminds me of the boy I've now lost. The hope that I failed to protect. It's not fair to him, to either of them really. But the garden of life is riddled with the weeds of injustice. With a thumb, Meris jabs over his shoulder. Amir's back, father and retinue with him. A pressure settles between my eyes across the bridge of my nose. Amir, Taraj's greatest friend, and much more besides if I allow myself to read into it. Him returning for the 4th day in a row is no great surprise. But for his father to leave the Hasari Gardens and set foot in Gadastone. That unsettles me. And worse than a reunion with an old friend that time and bitterness has settled between, I consider who his retinue includes. I stroke my beard. Accompanied by the serpent magi? Meres asks, reading the current of my Ashahai. Mm-hmm. And that sand-licking oaf Nizam. Better tell Nika to hide. Under other circumstances, I'd chastise him for his lack of propriety. Remind him the importance of the thoughts that occupy our minds and the responsibility we have over those that pass our lips. It's oft easier to take the boy out of the miasma than take the miasma from the boy. But in this regard, on both accounts, I'm inclined to agree. The Magi is a snake, and Nika should take to the shade if she wants to escape the light of Nizam's yearning gaze. I straighten my trousers, readjust my scarf, and resituate my turban. Not going to matter what you look like, Meres says. One who carries himself only to impress others stands in the shield wall absent a song. Meres chortles, tilting his head and wrinkling his brow. Always time for a lesson, eh? Tell Nika of Nizam's arrival. I'll handle the Sultan. I cross the courtyard toward the entryway, where the Sultan's retinue has already shown themselves in. Sultan Aben al-Tarseni approaches on his own 2 feet, absent a palanquin to carry him. The flowing robes of Pazish cottons, all whites, turquoises, and golds, can't conceal his ample stomach, nor can his graying beard hide the double chin that's taken residence beneath what was once a firm jaw. Much can change in 3 years. At his side, Zahir, the serpent Meres referred to, is as slender as the spear his steepled index fingers are meant to inspire worship of. Lighter of skin, narrow of jaw, only accentuated by his shaven face and a long ruby-studded gold postiche strapped to his chin. Zahir narrows his flinty eyes and flattens his lips in obsequious fashion. Behind Zahir's flowing robes of red chased with black and gold trim, and Aben's bulk, Amir follows, eyes downcast, cheeks wet with grief for the 4th straight day. His turquoise scarf emblazoned with the charging steed and golden trim of Huvara is already damp with fallen tears. And beside him, dressed in the black standards of the obsidian chakram, stands Captain Nizam. Beneath his black turban, pinned with the silver chakram brooch, Nizam wears the same crooked smile that accompanied him every time we opposed each other in the Koshti wrestling ring. Only now, his smile is split by a golden tooth to replace the one I knocked out. However taller and stronger the rival Palavan might have been, he's never defeated me, even if now he eclipses everything I've ever worked toward. I tap my third eye and chin, lowering the imaginary veil in a sign of respect before bowing deeply. Greetings, my Sultan. I redirect my bow. Archmagus, gratitude for gracing Sunstar with your presence. Please, allow me to fetch honeyed bread and water. Aben waves a dismissive hand, gold rings on every finger. Nonsense, old friend, nonsense! He totters toward me on curved-toed slippers, arms outstretched. The plumed feather of his turban sways like a rider atop a camel. He embraces me for the first time in 3 years, ever since he forsook the instruction of a Kavali Morshed for a Ventari teacher. Evident that my tutelage wasn't all for naught, his bear hug of an embrace still demonstrates the muscle hidden beneath his overindulgence, cultivated over a lifetime of swinging meals and pushing songs in the name of the devas. You still practice the arts, old friend, I say, patting him on his back. Not like we used to. He slaps my shoulder, pushing me away to look me in the eyes. Good to lay eyes, Iskander. He grips my arm, a genuineness in his familiar gaze. Apologies it wasn't sooner. Apologies for everything. How many wounds his sentiment intends to balm with the word everything remains lost in the miasma. It's not worth spanning the Kaigari Desert to find them. Gratitude, Sultan. Your presence uplifts us all. By sand and stars, Iskander, for the millionth moon, call me Aben. I greet my old friend with a forced smile, but bow to the Sultan. Amir, silent to this moment, steps forward. Greetings, Morshed. Father, may I? He gestures to Taraj's altar. Aben nods, waving a hand that makes the jeweled bracelets on his wrist jingle. Amir's dragging feet trace lines in the sand before the limestone steps up to Taraj's resting place. Aben and I watch, suspended in time, as our boys, once so full of life, are now but hollow shells. Amir's tender heart breaks, Aben says. Too much death of late. First his uncle, now Taraj. Terrible. Truly terrible. I startle, examining his portly cheeks before glancing from him to the Archmagus. Yusuf? The Vizier of Huvara? Dead? The rolled papyrus Taraj left burns a hole in my pocket as my mind races the dunes, longing to find a connection, a reason, an answer that could explain why Taraj entered the miasma. When? How? I can't believe something as devastating as the death of the Sultan's brother could have been so quietly kept. But Aben doesn't answer right away. Wincing, and almost waiting for an interjection, one does, in fact, come. Zahir tisks. Must I remind you, Your Excellency, that such matters should not be discussed publicly, especially with... Zahir stares down his long nose and gold postiche to the black sun tattooed on the back of my hand. Aben grimaces, and for a moment I'm reminded of the man he was before his father's responsibilities passed to him. But as quickly as it comes, it falls behind a facade of composure and servility. Of course, Magus. Right you are. Aben wrinkles his nose at me. Trying to keep it quiet. Don't need word to spread of Mazmishia infiltrating my palace and... That's quite enough, Sultan. Zahir cuts off any more mention of Mancora's largest organized crime syndicate, but hostility doesn't inflect his tone, despite the annoyance rippling across his otherwise stoic expression. That's not why we're here. With a swish of his red and gold robes of Pazish cotton, Zahir steps alongside Aben, the heat of his gaze focused on me. It's dawning day, Morshed. The emphasis on my title drips with disdain, as if I'm unworthy of the honor simply because I haven't abandoned the Devas for the eternal Shah. You've been informed, Zahir continues. Affairs aside, you must vacate the Zerkana by sundown, unless you plan to pay your debts to the eternal Shah for your obstinance. Tension braces within my gut, preparing for a blow. Affairs aside. Taraj's body, cold and still, bathed in the purifying fire's aura, turns the knot in my stomach into a stone in quicksand. I restrain the urge to scoff at the use of his word debts. Without the Sultan's seal, the taxes to own an establishment are exorbitant, a punishment for not bending the knee to the eternal Shah. I bow before the Ventari archmagus. I'll vacate by sunrise, after the ceremony. Zahir's flinty gaze flicks like a serpent's tongue from Aben to Nizam, as if waiting for someone to enforce his ruling on behalf of the eternal Shah. "It is dawning day," Aben allows. "Perhaps another day would not invite the miasma to our city?" Zahir's nostrils flare. Now more than ever, Huvara needs strength upon the throne and in the streets. Should law not be enforced, Captain? Nizam, perhaps distracted searching for any sign of Nika, clears his throat and shrugs. "The Chakram will be overseeing the Turkani gardens to protect the Eternal Shah. The Morshed will be out by dawn. He's a man of his word." Zahir returns Nizam's smile, but the sentiment is corrupted within his stare. His reptilian gaze lilts to the shamshir sheathed at the obsidian Chakram captain's hip, before darting to Aben and returning to me. Debt piles up in the lands of the faithless. As sure as the Kevali Devas have fallen, respected viziers hath choked, and sullen children hath wandered into the miasma. Infidelity will starve these lands long before Mazmistia, or any foreign army, can raise its walls and salt its fields. You speak of men, and the integrity their words carry. But how can one trust a black sun? He fixes me in his saurian gaze, especially when his only words avert, denied the everlasting light of the eternal Shah's glory. I can swallow the indignity and blasphemous remarks, but my brow twitches at the disdainful dismissal of my son's life as a result of not tending to the eternal Shah's light. But the archmagus is not finished. He points at me with a slender index finger. "I can sense your maligned Ashahai, black sun." He shudders, wrinkling his nose as if my mere presence offers offense. "From your souls of stability, to your cuirass of command, to your shield of shelter, and tiara of tranquility, you are meat for the masmit." He inclines his head, as if savoring insulting me on the steps of my own house. "It comes as no surprise that you are unable to tend to your flame," Zahir says, twisting his finger like a knife in my belly. "You are unfit to be named Morshed. And by dawn," his fingers flit like embers on the wind, rising and scattering into oblivion, "you will be gone. And mark me, black sun, once your adulterous affliction over this city, these people, is scorched in the dominion of light cast by the eternal Shah, Huvara will arise to reclaim former glories." He smiles as if he'd just wished me a pleasant solace celebration. His assurance is backed by the power granted within the rigid hierarchy his eternal Shah has sold to the masses. Cold justice, stoic conformity, performative purity, a distortion of truth for the sake of control. With strength, I remember. With breath, I endure. In stillness, I am reborn. But I only remember Taraj's last words. You bow in the quicksand, failing to realize that your inaction isn't strength, but the slow surrender of a warrior who has lost heart. I cannot bear it. In my stillness, I am undone. Zahir goes unanswered, uncontested. And before I can fathom the words to defend the Devas or Vizier Yusuf, whose loss will be felt from the hearts of Hasadan to the outskirts of Huvara, another approaches, and I sink deeper into the quicksand to drown in the consequences of my inaction. Zahir claps his hands. What perfect timing! He beckons the newcomer to approach, forgetting my existence. Invokes a man who appears as a deva, the paragon of youthful strength. Waves of honeyed hair dyed with turmeric and flecks of gold reflect the light of dying day. Glazed in olive oil, his light skin, more bronze than brown, reflects every hard line of corded muscle over his bare arms and exposed chest beneath his gold-trimmed scarlet vest. He saunters with the swagger afforded by the insignia of the burning Kopesh and stalking manticore of Pazir on his breast. Pouted lips and familiar amber eyes appraise Sunstar's arcana. Sultan Aben, Zahir says, warding Nizam out of the way to make space for the newest guest. Allow me to introduce the new Morshed of Sunstar, the greatest Palavan in Pazir and a stalwart champion of the Eternal Shah's court, Prince Temur al-Etun. Al-Etun. The name sends a spasm through my breast. The name that my wife, Farhana, refused to forsake when she married me. The name she kept when she requested a divorce. Gratitude, Archmagus, Temur says, with a tongue of silver to accompany his deep bow. Sultan Aben, how grateful I am to be in your fair city. But when the Pazish princeling addresses his sultan, his back stiffens, and his tone lacks the same luster. He inclines his gaze to Sunstar, a house of strength he couldn't begin to understand. I look forward to polishing this stone to find the gem at its heart. Polishing limestone doesn't transform it to turquoise, but I'll allow my replacement to discover that truth for himself. The stone haulers and farmhands of Gadastone might be resistant to his manicured nail beds and the gold-speckled coal that lines his eyes. But like all of Amara, eventually they too will bend to the Ventari wave brought by the dawning of the Eternal Shah. The champion appraises me. He's young enough to be Farhana's nephew, and though I know naught of him, the way he inspects me suggests he knows every secret I ever spoke in the ear of the woman I loved, who never loved me back. Morshed, Temur says with a smile. Iskandar, the Black Sun, the undefeated Palavan. I hope the tales of you are true. I look forward to testing my mettle to yours in the Koshti ring. His shaven cheeks dimple as his white teeth flash in a genuine grin. I bow my head, sinking deeper into the quicksand, a slow surrender of a warrior who's lost heart. Aben clears his throat. Iskandar has yet to accept the invitation to my niece's wedding. There is a hint of suggestion, a tinge of desperation to his tone. Had he not mentioned Yusuf's sudden death, and the fact that the Ventari wished to keep it quiet, I might not have sensed it. with more urgent mass myths to contend with. He wants me to accept, but I have no heart to compete. What purpose is there when I am no longer Palavan of Sunstar? What is there to stand for when the last Kavali Morshed is denied his drum to teach the Palavani arts? If Taraj were here, would he wish me to compete? To win? Would he want me to stand against the Ventari sandstorm and prove that even though the Devas are gone, their teachings endure? She is your daughter now, Archmage Zahir corrects.
Right. Yes, of course.
Aben hangs his head. With the death of his brother, Yusuf's wife and daughter fall under Aben's purview. And now, he will have to declare an heir between his niece and his son, further complicating his family affairs. Temur crosses his arms over his chest, awaiting my reply. Eyes narrowed against the setting sun, I purse my lips before assessing the dying flames of Turaj's pyre, and Amir bowed before it. Many sons to you and your new daughter, Sultan. But I will no longer be Morshed, or have a Zarkana to compete on behalf of. With the sun setting to stretch the shadows long, Aben does little to hide the dying light in his eyes. But I owe him nothing, and even if I did, I have nothing left to give. Now, there is only Taraj, finishing his rites and seeing his body off to the Tower of Silence. His soul will rejoin the Arati currents to one day return to this world. I can only hope by the time he does, Amara will be a better place, where leaders have courage, and the gods guide by grace, and not by eclipsing all they stand above. But I can no longer be that leader, and that day is not today. Final night. The courtyard begins to clear as people make their way to the festivities on the one night a year their presence in the darkness of the moon is not an affront to the eternal Shah. We should be going, Zahir says. We must make arrangements for the eternal Shah's entrance and leave the Black Sun to his affairs. At dawn, I expect you to depart this Zarkana and leave no trace of your fallen devas. And I assure you, he glares at Nizam, the Chakram will be most attentive in this matter. Nizam might be a fool, as Meris attested, but he's not such a fool as not to comprehend the threat in the Magi's sharp stare. Nizam salutes with the steepled fingers of the crowned spear of Ventari. Without another word and a swish of his robes, Zahir spins on the heel of his pointed slippers and departs.
Come, Amir, Aben says. Leave the Morshed to his mourning.
He claps me on the shoulder one more time.
Take care, old friend.
The sad smile that momentarily curls the corner of his lip falls with the dying sun and slips into the oblivion of his graying beard. He follows Zahir and his son. Nizam gives me a nod and a gilded grin, but his eyes still scan the courtyard, no doubt hoping to find Nika before he departs. Give Nika my best. I grunt. We both know it won't be good enough. Nizam's grin remains, but he falls to Aben's shadow, leaving me with the man who will replace me in the house my ancestors built. Temur is more interested in Sunstar than me, but I wait, as is my place, and he stands in judgment, as is his. Every star burns out, Black Sun. Nothing to be ashamed of, he says with a bow once he's had his fill. I will honor these walls, and those who seek the wisdom found within. I bow. Varana sends her regards. The mention of my wife's name blossoms heat to my cheeks. If I had accepted the Ventari, would she still be here? Would Toraj have lost hope and entered the miasma if she hadn't left? Has my pride been my undoing? I know the answers, even though my heart can't bear them. My mind knows.
I hope to see you in the Koshti ring in Hasdan,
Tamur says. Bask in the light. By the time he and the other patrons paying their respects leave, only Nika and Maris remain, and I am empty. Nika closes the gates. Maris lights the torches that ring the outskirts of the courtyard, and I plod to the limestone steps before the altar of my dead son.
With strength I remember. With breath I endure. In stillness I am reborn.
Saying it doesn't make it true, doesn't make me believe. I remember, but it hurts. I breathe, but my ribs threaten to fracture with each exhale. And one day, I might rise from this pain. But my son never will. He's gone. The papyrus in my pocket is a sand star burrowing beneath the surface of the dunes, waiting for me to walk unwittingly atop it, so it can coil its tendrils around me and sap the blood from my flesh. For what I am about to do, what I must, for the sake of Cabal, I apologize, Toraj wrote. The Devas demand a martyr. I stare into the purifying fire as it dwindles, and the night's cold encroach stirs with the winds. The festivities across Suvara, celebrating the first day of the Eternal Shah's immortality, and the last day of the Divine Age, carry over the walls. Music, singing, and dancing commemorate the fall of my gods. Parades from the Turkani Gardens, across the Heleni River, through the Silkarti, the Bazar District, and Koprka, cheer the death of my son. It's not true. Not entirely. But that's all I can think of as Toraj's fire and my mourning period smolder. Eskandar, Nika says, soft as the whispering wind. Are you? I cut her off with a wave of my hand. The sun will rise again. Just not for Toraj. I force a smile that dredges water from the deep wells to the corner of my eyes. I inhale the fading incense and blink the tears away. We'll stay, Maris says, coming up alongside Nika. Till the end, eh? He would. They both would, even if I didn't ask them to. An orphaned Dahi and a rejected daughter. Sunstar Zarkana has been their home, too. The final day. Not just for Taraj, but for all of us. I shake my head, staring into the rising smoke and the dancing embers. Gratitude. But I would like some time alone with my son, in the home of my forefathers. Nika nods, pursing her scarred lip. Maris thumbs his nose, sniffing. No Leviati vine, I say. Stable souls and tranquil thoughts are a Palavan's path to truth, Maris finishes. We know. I grunt, but my lip twitches into a miasmic mirage of a smile. No opium, either. Maris guffaws, but Nika fixes him with a stern glare only a champion of the Zarkana could get away with giving. And no stealing. Meris looks over his shoulder as if there is someone else my words are meant for. Who? Me? Steal? Always blame a Dahi any time something goes missing, eh? Nika crosses her arm. Please don't steal, Meris. And to think, I warned you of Nizam's arrival, and this is the gratitude I get, Meris says with exasperated offense. The familiar banter fills the empty courtyard. I half expect Turaj to chime in, coming to Meris's defense on how he hasn't pilfered the copper since he began his studies at Sunstar. But now, Meris comes to his own defense. What if I promise not to get caught, eh? Nika sighs, ignoring him. We'll light a sky lantern for you, she says to me. One for you, one for Taraj, and 4 for the Devas. She extends her arms, and I stand to embrace her. We'll rejoin you, she says into my shoulder, and accompany Taraj to the Tower of Silence, together. Together, Meris agrees, clapping me on the back. For a father who has lost his only son, and a man about to lose the Zerkana that's been in his family for nearly a millennia, I count myself blessed, until I feel the rolled scroll in my pocket. Tomorrow, I agree. We'll gather, and just like the Tajin cards, we'll follow the fable and take the Dahi's journey to the braid. Nika smiles, though the light of it doesn't reach her eyes. To the braid. As she begins to walk away, Meris follows, enlightening her that the nomadic Dahi aren't the fools they're presented to be in the fable, and if anything, they're the only ones who have ever braved the Manticore, survived the Masmit, or overcome the trial. It brings a grin to my lips, as it would have to Taraj's, but that only allows the masslings to pick at me between the din of the distant celebrations and the sullen silence left in the wake of Nika and Meris's absence. When I can't look at what remains of my son anymore, and the time for tending the pyre has passed, I flee the courtyard for the peace within Sunstar Zarkana. Above the low entryway, inscribed in the stone, are the words, "Enter with humility, leave with strength." Resting my hand against the wooden frame, I bow to enter the low doorway and descend the stairs that lead within. Reliefs carved into the walls of the stairwell depict past leaders. From Hassar, the first Morshed of Sunstar, who led the defense of the Dahi tribes from the invading Scythians, all the way to my father, and lastly, me. I stop before the inscription of my likeness, no longer recognizing the man I was. The first hoof to lead the stampede, my father had called me when I overtook Palavan Hashem and became champion of the Zarkana. Now, I am the Black Sun. What good is a star without the light it casts? Though no black sun tattoo mars my hand in the stone tablet, the light of flickering candles play tricks to make it appear so. I hang my head, descending the final stair to discard my sandals on the shelves where all who have entered have done before me, and likely where others thereafter will for many years to come. That is, if Temur doesn't tear it down to rebuild it in gold. Sighing, I wash my hands in the basin, inclining my gaze to the domed ceiling overtop the octagonal sandpit at its center. The Gaud, where boys became men became leaders, and some leaders grew into martyrs. Despite the futility, I scrub the black sun on the back of my hand, as if more effort will free me from the decisions I've made, the choices that led Turaj to his own. I would be frustrated with myself if I had the energy. From the basin to the tea shelf, I float like a djinn, wanting simultaneously for time to stop and speed to my own demise. The kettle from the morning's training is well past cold, but there is still some water left. Taking a cup, I pour. Yet as the last drop ripples through the surface of my lukewarm tea, I feel a presence within the Zircana. I'm not alone. And whoever they are, they didn't descend the stairs. They've been here, waiting. I take a stilling breath. Slowly, I set my cup down. A few strides away, Hussar's mace is mounted to the wall. But I have nothing left to defend, nothing worth protecting. I turn, submissive and defeated, to the lurking presence at the center of the goud. Unarmed, unthreatening, the old man, Ani, greets me with a sad smile. Hello, Moshed. The tension in my shoulder slackens. To the forge with this man! I rest my hands on my hips and shake my head, searching for the words to say. I stare down at him from my position on the elevated floor above the sandpit. By sand and stars, Ani, come back tomorrow. I said I needed to speak with you, Ani says, holding up pale palms scarred by wounds that should render his hands useless. I need your help, and tomorrow is a luxury we cannot wait upon. I inhale patience, but find only fatigue. What do you want with me? Can't you see? I reach into my pocket and pull out Taraj's leather, shaking my fist at the old man like he should know what it means. I gesture to the domed ceiling held up by the 4 pillars surrounding the sandpit. Whatever you want, whatever you need, I can't help you. I point to the black sun on the back of my palm. Do you know what this means? Have you any idea? I deflate, ashamed for my outburst at this stranger. 3 trembling exhales escape my lips before Ani takes a deep breath of his own. Iskander, Ani says, bowing. He stands, appraising me with eyes that burn through me like hot coals. It's Taraj. Taraj sent me. Chapter 2. The Tajin. He who hears, but doesn't listen, also speaks without a tongue. I've said it once for every grain of sand in the goud, perhaps once for every massling in the miasma or star across the night sky. I sit on my heels in the sand before Ani, my hands resting on my knees. Ani's words fill my ears, but none reach my heart. My tiara of tranquility denies me sight. My turban of transformation forbids the possibility, and my sword of sovereignty is lost in the miasma of Ani's supposed truth. Ani returns with 2 steaming cups of tea. Despite his age and the uneven sand beneath his feet from the Koshti bouts that tilled them earlier, the old man's Ashahai cores must be entwined with the braid to remain so stable. You don't believe me, he says rather than asks, offering me a cup. I don't know why Taraj entered the miasma, how he managed to make it to the Forsaken Forge, or why the Maslings left him untouched. But he summoned me, so here I am. I inhaled the tea. It's not the typical brew. There's a hint of something masked by cinnamon. I drink it anyway. You are cruel, I say between sips. You come to my Zircana on the final day of my son's final flame, and you claim you're what? A god? Ani chortles. Wasn't always so, and I'm not sure what I once was. But yes, once I too sat, head bowed before an elder who whispered truths I didn't have the ears to hear, let alone believe. I shake my head, going along with the ruse. Entourage entered the miasma, sought the forge, and summoned you from the errati currents to restore the braid between Denegon and the divine realm. Ani finishes. Right. I take another sip of tea. The fact that the braid, the bridge that connects the mortal and divine realms, is severed isn't so difficult to believe. The fall that killed the Devas and gave rise to the miasma is evidence enough of that. The Devas demand a martyr, Taraj wrote. The papyrus feels heavy within my pocket. And only once the Devas' spirits are brought to the forge can we restore the connection between your world and the errati currents, Ani says again. I heard him the first time. It would sound preposterous, if not for Taraj's letter. I close my eyes and sip again, not allowing myself to believe that my son's life was traded so I could take an old man on a voyage across Amara. I inspect him, standing across the gowd from where I sit. If he takes joy in my discomfort, he offers no sign. If he is a god, his patience isn't equal to my own. He fills the silence only the din of distant celebrations can contend with. This world teeters toward tyranny, Ani says, as if I have not fed those who have gone hungry within the Eternal Shah's united empire. As if it were he, not I, who healed the sick, sheltered the homeless, and prayed with those who lost loved ones. Every moon, the crowned spear spreads its influence, Ani says. Mancora, Abranth, Glavonia, Scythia. He unites the warring countries. He believes he's fulfilling Kadesh and Padya's unity pact by being the beacon of everlasting light to banish the miasma and lead the world. Perhaps he is. I can't keep the bitterness from my tongue. The Devas are gone. Kadesh and Padya have been dead long enough to have returned from the errati currents, lived a new life, died a new death, and repeated the cycle 12 times more since the Unity Pact was foretold. Ani's gaze fixes me through the steam of his tea. If you believe that the Eternal Shah is the answer to disperse the miasma, why are you a black sun? I grimace. Because I was a fool. Because I believed my patience was strength, bowing in quicksand, believing I could outlast it. Standing abruptly, I stalk across the sand to where Ani leans against the half-wall of the gowd. I set my tea down, leaning an elbow on the elevated surface to stare into his youthful eyes that belie his age. You want me to escort you across Amara and collect the spirits of the fallen Devas from the monasteries they died in, which are buried beneath the Sultan's palaces, mind you. Then, you'll have me believe that you, and only you, in possession of their essences, will be able to restore the braid between Amara and the errati currents. And in so doing, the miasma will disperse, cleansing all of Denegon. Ani nods, but I'm not done yet. But, in the meantime, what you're telling me is that my son's soul is trapped between realms, and the only way to save him is to follow me. Yes, Ani says. But this isn't simply about the miasma. It's reconnecting your world to the Creator and exposing your tyrant for the charlatan he is. I've known since I was a small boy that the fall separated us from the errati. but never did I believe that left souls trapped between realms. I don't trust this Ani. I don't want to believe him. He speaks of charlatans. But what if he himself is one? Ani places his weathered hand atop mine. Iskander, I know how this sounds. I know you believe you've been forsaken by the gods. We have. Whether it's the bite in my tone, or the fist I clench beneath his touch, Ani winces. They were here, among us. Then they died, and left us a miasma and the eternal Shah. I misspoke, he allows. You have been forsaken, but not with intent. What happened was... The old man trails off, lost in a miasma of memories. Horrible. And I'm sorry. More than you can know. But I offer a path to restoration. For your world and your son. I can't help but scoff. If what you say is true, you only offer death. I count off one by one on my fingers. Infiltrate the Sultan's palaces. Steal the remains of the resting devas. Cross the miasma. And bring them to the Forsaken Forge? I shake my head, recalling the stories my father told of the Kavali monks and the Shenkarda sisters after the fall of the devas. How they built the forge to rebuild the tether to the Arati currents. How they were slaughtered by the Eternal Shah's Ventari zealots, and the Zerkana rebellions that followed. I remember asking as a boy, why didn't you fight? The way his cheeks reddened beneath his graying beard, the scowl that narrowed his eyes over his stout brow to form an angle that mirrored the turquoise pendant gifted to him by Sultan Nasir al-Tarseni for loyalty. I felt ashamed of him then. But now, the words of my own son, scrawled upon the papyrus in my pocket, condemns me worse than I ever could my father. You have never ventured into the miasma, stood before Kadel's walls, axed his seas, or against the Eternal Shah, Taraj wrote. Each convicting word pains me worse than the black sun they tattooed on my flesh for not accepting the Eternal Shah and the Ventari oaths. The brooch I wore as a signet of my honor was only evidence of the half measures I took, never far enough to make a difference. My honor was Taraj's shame, just as my father's turquoise pendant was mine. I must do so, and more besides. In the space of my inaction, Taraj entered the miasma, seeking someone who would help, because I couldn't. I didn't. Never conflate survival with resilience, if in its wake there is no life. The parable I taught within this very goud taunts me. I stare down at the black sun tattooed on my hand. Iskander, Ani says, attempting to draw me out of my shame like a salve to a toxin. You were invited to compete in the wedding festivities for Sultan Al-Tarseni's niece. You'll be within the palace. He places a hand on my shoulder, as if he were the Morshed, and I were setting foot inside this Zerkana for the first time. I should be present, but I am lost. My Ashahai cores twist and churn, from my souls of stability up to my cuirass of command. It doesn't make sense, Ani. Why would Taraj enter the miasma? Why now? Ani gives me the sad smile of a Morshed who knows his wisdom is wasted on a pupil unable or unwilling to listen. His gaze flicks to the sea of stars beyond the open-air window of the Zerkana. I wish I knew. But take rest. Consult the Tajin, and allow the cards to speak to you. He pats my arm and squeezes. Some need to see to believe. He drinks the rest of his tea before ascending the stairs out of the goud, pointing back to me and my half-filled cup. Finish. And remember, Morshed, hope cannot be stolen, only forsaken. The old man leaves me in the house of my ancestors with the words of Khorshedar, Deva of resilience, lingering in the air like incense. I inhaled the words, reminding myself of their truth. But I must be weak, because I cannot accept the truth I taught. My hope wrote the scroll in my pocket, strode into the miasma, and died at the forge. I drink the last of the tea before pulling the papyrus from my pocket. Smoothing the scroll, I read it again, praying that somehow I will divine sense from it that I failed to find previously. Father, we have not always seen eye to eye. I have seldom been the son you wanted, as you have rarely been the man I hoped to become. For what I am about to do, what I must for the sake of Kaval, I apologize. Truly, sincerely. If I am successful, you will never need to learn why. But my name will be cursed, as I'm sure yours will be too. For that, I'm sorry. Perhaps you would have found a better way. But time is short. You aren't here, and the Devas demand a martyr. You have taught me the strength in humility, the power born from unity, and how to wield the shield of honor. But you have never ventured into the miasma, stood before Kadel's walls, asked his cease, or against the eternal Shah. I must do so, and more besides. The Tajin have spoken. There is but one path to Diorati. May we meet there, once again. Taraj. Heat burns my cheeks. Tears streak the kohl from my eyes. It wounds me that I have fallen so far short of his estimation. But it kills me that he believes himself anything but a perfect son. Aben condemned Amir's tender heart, his effeminate nature, while the Sultan might have refused to see it or accept it of his own son. I saw it as one of Taraj's greatest strengths. The way he could read a room as easily as words in a tome, or feel the pain of others as deeply as if their discomfort was his own. It wasn't weakness. Never weakness. But I failed to speak my mind, or my heart. Yet another failing. Amidst my shame, my mind is clear enough to hone in on an inconsistency between Taraj's letter and Ani's story. If I'm successful, you will never need to learn why. But my name will be cursed, as I'm sure yours will be too. Like swinging an unbalanced meal, I can feel something is off its axis. Taraj was successful if he sought to reach the forge and summon Ani. Why would that curse his name or mine? With only more questions, I focus on something both Ani and Taraj mentioned. The Tajin. Climbing from the goud, I stride past the meals, songs, and shennaboards, and around the drums, to the alcove at the back of the Zerkana. With a nearby candle, I light several others to illuminate the small room. Atop the patterned carpet, and between the two sitting pillows, the tagine deck remains as it has since Taraj left the note. I sit on the pillow, craning over the cards. 3 remain face up, with the rest of the deck down, off to the side. The first card is the 10 of Shamshirs. A final betrayal. Was it me giving up the Zerkana? I didn't have a choice. The Ventari were taking it from me whether I stood against them or not. Denied the Sultan's seal, the Archmagus's rather. The tax collectors turn a blind eye to those bearing it, and bleed dry those who lack with the viciousness of a sandstar. The second card is the final flame. The end. Letting go. Transformation. There were so many transitions, and any and all contexts could be associated with the final flame depending on the query Taraj asked. The third card, depicted as a harrowing humanoid beast with the hulking frame of a mountain, the claws of a manticore, and the tusks of a boar, bears down on a man lying supine, shielding himself with an outstretched arm. The Mazmit. A shudder runs through me, but no thoughts piece together what question he could have asked the cards that would make him write this letter, that would make him enter the miasma. The only answers I can find are through my own questions, my own cards. I shuffled the 10 of Shamshirs, the final flame, and the Masmith back into the deck. I close my eyes, allowing the flexible cards to bend within my hands before shuffling them together. The buzz of the edges conjoining brings me a momentary peace, though I fear what the tagine will reveal. I split the deck and shuffle again. What do I need to see, Taraj? What did you so desperately long to show me? One more time, I cut and shuffled the deck. I open my eyes, fanning the cards out so each one is visible to me. Just as Taraj did the night before he disappeared into the miasma, I pick out 3 cards that resonate with my Ashahai cores and set them apart, face down. By resilience's virtue, grant me strength to see that which I fear. By fortune's favor, present me a path I may walk upon to grow in understanding. By solace's mercy, help me accept with humility the way before me. And by innovation's ingenuity, reveal to me the gifts I can accept to bear the burdens the cards are about to reveal. I flip the first card. The 10 of Shamshirs. My breath trembles. A silent sob threatens to rattle my ribs. A coincidence. I flip the second card. At first, I only stare in disbelief. But gazing upon the card doesn't change it. The final flame. An image of the dwindling fire before Taraj's body. I shake my head. Just a coincidence. I hesitate to flip the third. As it stands, I'd need a Shenkarda sister to interpret these cards based on Taraj's pull and my query. But they've gone to the wind with the rise of the eternal Shah. I reach for the final card, but the draft stirs the curtains of the alcove. Pausing, I listen to the night. For a moment, I question my sanity. Perhaps Ani's surprise has me on edge. The Tajin aren't doing me any favor. The sound of soft steps upon the stone stairs summons my attention. Likely just Nika and Maris. I take a deep breath. I can't stall any longer. I need to know what Taraj wanted me to understand. I flip the final card. I inhale sharply, my stomach dropping to my sacrum.
Impossible.
My fingers recoil from the card as fortune spits in my face. Innovation hides behind her veil. Resilience has forsaken me altogether, and solace flees like shadows from the flame. The Masmit stares back.
Taraj.
His name slips from my mouth in a breathy whisper.
I don't understand.
I feel a presence waiting patiently beyond the entryway to the alcove. I incline my gaze to the light, seeking wisdom from my pupils. But Nika does not darken my door. Neither does Meris, Ani, or even the eternal Shah himself. Cloaked in white, from turban to toes, an ivory chakram stands within my zarkana. Not the obsidians under Nizam's command, charged with keeping the peace, but the ivory, the silent killers tasked with culling Masmits and delivering those found guilty of treason to the miasma. I stand from my pillow, opening my mouth to inquire about his entry, but the mace in his hands and the veil masking his features tell me everything about my predicament. Shadows dance behind him. He's not alone. I lose count at 8 ivories before holding up my hands.
This is a mistake. I'll be out by daybreak, as discussed with Sultan Altarseni. The Archmage's...
The slow, resolute shake of the ivory's head cuts me off. I glance at the Tajin cards on the floor. The 10 of Shamshirs, the final flame, and the Masmit stares back. Betrayal, death, coercion. Chapter 3. Ivory Interlopers. Whispered words can lower shields Shamshirs would break upon. The old adage feels hollow as the 3 ivories block the alcove's entrance, each with maces in hand or shamshirs and daggers on their hips. Hands raised, I lower my head.
Who sent you?
The ivories, silent as the reliefs of the Palavans and Morsheds that bowed beneath Sunstar's doorframe, provide no answer, no insight, no kindness.
My son.
The lead ivory steps into the alcove, his mace leading the way. I take a small step back, retreating to the corner to ensure I can't be surrounded.
I'll go willingly, but allow me to deliver my son to the Tower of Silence.
The ivory's eyes gleam in the candlelight, reflecting the gold and turquoise carpets, pillows, and curtains in the small room. Despite the light palette of his uniform, his glare is as dark as the miasma. A shadow passes over my soul, with the whisper of a cruel jinn in my ear. I spare one last glance down at the Tajin.
Is this what happened, Taraj? Was there something else you planned? But the ivories came for you before you could?
It's a stretch, but if true, it would mean Taraj did not enter the miasma willingly. This wasn't the martyrdom he chose.
No whispered words will lower these shields.
My extended finger trembles, not out of fear for myself, but fear for my boy. If true, how terrified he must have been.
And where was I, his father, when he cried for aid? Have you bowed beneath this door before?
I ask, knowing he won't answer.
Did you take my boy?
The silence-sworn ivory advances. I retreat deeper to the corner, my back brushing the white and turquoise curtain, buying myself precious space and allowing the potential outcomes of my present circumstances to play out within my mind's eye.
At least 8, all armed, seasoned in the miasma, and tested against moss myths. How many can I put to ground before I'm overtaken?
2, maybe 3, with the element of surprise. 4 if fortune takes pity on me and wishes me to survive long enough to understand who would do this to Taraj, and why. The ivory angles his mace to my nose, and with his free hand points to the ground, ordering me to lay down. If I believed for a fleeting moment that compliance would deliver me to their leader, I would. But I hold no such disillusionment. They are here for one reason, and one reason only: to frame my death as a suicide. A mourning father, overcome by grief, a Morshed with nothing left to live for after his Zarkana was taken. With the new Ventari wave of reformation, how long would anyone tend the flame for a black sun? Too long have I knelt in the quicksand hoping the sandstorm would pass. Too long I have cowered in passivity, naming it patience. But no longer. I will not bow. I will not kneel. Not while the monasteries are filled with the tyrant's masslings, and the last of my fate is stomped out like the smoldering remains of what was meant to be the eternal flame. He expects I'll comply, but I am the Black Sun. I kneel to no false god. I snort at the ivory. To the miasma with you. The ivory lunges, turning his mace to crash down on my outstretched arm. The black sun rises in my mind's eye, darkening the world around me, so that all there is, all there was, or ever will be, fades from concern. There is just me and the ivory's poised mace. Time slows, focus sharpens, and in the dawning of the black sun's stare, I react with precision. I retract. Wind rushes past where my arm was a moment before. 2 others funnel into the alcove. As the first ivory rears to strike again, I grab the curtain to ensnare the mace and wrench. He doesn't let go. Pity for him. The curtain drags him off balance. I drive my knee up into his solar plexus. Air escapes him, and his grip on the mace falters. I release the curtain and slam my elbow atop the back of his neck. His mace slips from grasp. But as one falls, 2 rise to replace him, and another pair bars the exit. The black sun rises higher in the sky of my mind. Weapons sheathed and holstered at their hips, the new pair attempts to grapple me. One reaches for my lead leg in a Koshti takedown. Like the free motion of Amir's momentum, I allow him to reach for my knee. I throw both feet back as I rip my scarf from my neck and wrap it around his. Cinching tight, I halt his motion towards my lower body and twist. Like a camel on its lead, the ivory contorts with a choking gasp as I pivot, positioning him between the other ivory and myself. The black sun does not scorch. It consumes. I know what the ivory will do before he does. He lunges, but I release my scarf and push-kick the still choking ivory into his compatriot. A candle tips, its flame grasping with greedy fingers onto the carpet. The first ivory, who has since reclaimed his mace, stamps it out hastily. They can't afford to make it look like a struggle took place. In that case, I'll be a sandstorm. Before the next 2 can advance into the small alcove, I kick over another candle and rip the curtain from the wall, pulling the rod down with it. Unwieldy in the close confines, the curtain rod and its attached linen serve to stave off their advance. Light blossoms and heat swells as the room's candles latch on to the curtain's tassels, keeping the nearest ivories at a distance. But it's not long before the fire consumes the curtain and falls from the rod. While two attempt to contain the flames, the ivory with the mace charges. I raise the curtain rod to block, but the soft metal bends to the iron's will. Shoving him away, I snap the bent curtain rod, creating two jagged poles. The mace is a wonderful weapon, but reach is not its strength. And while a snapped curtain rod would be no warrior's first choice to carry into battle, its length aids my defense. I snap one rod into the side of the ivory's lower leg, buckling his knee. With the other, I smack his arm, his opposite shoulder, and then the side of his head with my first rod. But the fires are stamped out, and I'm surrounded by 3 ivories, with 2 more falling off any escape. I need the mace. Under the black sun's stare, I hurl the snapped rod at the nearest 2, forcing them to defend themselves, and with true Koshti swiftness, I advance on the ivory with the mace. He strikes, but I catch his wrist with a crossblock. Pivoting, I plant my heel between his feet, grab his wrist, and fling him over my shoulder. His back slams into the ground between me and the other ivories. I stomp on his shoulder, pinning him long enough to wrest the mace free from his grip. He reaches for my ankle with his free hand, but before he can grab me, I slam the flanged head down into his sternum. The currents within his cuirass of command seize as bone breaks and breath flees. He'll live, but he won't move much. The remaining 4 in the alcove draw daggers from their hips. I hate blades. Too deft, too deadly, too well suited to their overwhelming numbers and the close confines of our arena. Breathing heavily the smoke-stained air of the ever-darkening alcove, I seek a weakness or an opportunity to turn advantage. They present no weakness, but the shelf along the wall beside me, shoulder height, filled with clay cups and herb vials, is my opportunity. With my left arm, I swipe the pottery from the shelf, sending it hurtling into the nearest ivory. I dodge a slashing dagger, parry a thrust from the next, and swing my mace at the third. I connect with a blow that makes even the silent ivory yelp, but the 4th's blade finds purchase along my forearm. Heat courses to follow the bloody snake slithering up my arm. My tunic drinks greedily from the scarlet crescent curling around my elbow. Fire sting aside, I whirl, nearly tripping over the scorched pillow on the floor. I catch myself just in time to be hauled backwards by the 2 at the alcove's entry, each seizing one of my arms. The black sun can't protect me. A fist crashes into my chin, jamming my jaw backwards. The metallic taste of blood fills my mouth as my lip splits under the force. My hearing distorts as if my head's been shoved under water. But the ivory should have struck me with his dagger if he wanted to put me down. The pain sends the black sun sailing higher atop the horizon, sharpening my shamshir's focus to a sliver's edge. I jerk right and reach my foot behind the heel of the ivory on that side. As the ivory on my left reflexively yanks me back towards him, I let his momentum pull me. My foot snakes inside the grappler's feet. We go down together. The ivory on my right releases me as he falls back, tumbling over the ledge and into the recessed sandpit of the goud. From my back, with my left arm still grappled, I plant one foot into the ivory's hip and hook my other inside his knee. With a shove and pull, I disengage from his grip and slam my stolen mace into the side of his lower thigh. Even the silent ivory is not fully immune to pain. A groan accompanies the bone-rending strike. But though I freed myself from my most pressing danger, I back to the wall on the outskirts of the goud. Blood fills my mouth, and my ears still ring from the strike to my chin. With 3 ivories down, The remaining 6 white-clad silent servants to a cause never blessed by the light approach to claim my last vestiges of hope. Mace held before me, I eye my encroaching attackers in the larger space. Hidden by veils, turbans, and scarves, they conceal themselves. Part of me wonders if I trained them as boys, or if I once wrestled their mosheds, if not them themselves. There are too many for me to have any hope of victory. But if I can outlast and escape... The thought of abandoning my home, my son, burns within me. My rage roars with a mass mist's malice. The primal part of me I've caged for virtue and trained into obedient alignment with the Cavalli Deva's peace bleeds from within, longing to be unlocked and unleashed on these interlopers. With my left hand, I reach for a nearby meal without averting my gaze. These ivories swore to defend humanity from the beasts of the dark. I am not their enemy. But they have come to my house, interrupted my mourning, my son's final flame. You come to this place, I hissed through barbed teeth, searching for an escape. Under shadow of night and cover of veil, my fingers curl around the handle of the wooden club. Clear a path to the stairs. Fight in the courtyard. If they want this to be silent, I'll raise calamity and make certain all of Gatherstone hears their deeds. I whip my head from the stairs I want to escape to, towards the pale manticores surrounding me. While my son's final flame withers outside, I spit blood at the ivory directly in front of me, speckling his pristine linens. The Devas have fallen, but not half so far as you! I lunge for the man blocking off the stairs to my right. The dagger held before him can't block, so he tries to dodge, but the head of my mace crushes his fingers between the flange of iron and the dagger's hilt. Brittle bones groan under force meant to break songs. He recoils, and his neighbors advance to protect him, but my meal is faster. Wood follows iron. Stained and painted solid walnut crashes into a shoulder with enough force to ensure the ivory won't hold a dagger or lift a song for moons to come. I pivot and swipe with my mace while building momentum for another strike with the meal. This one holds no weapon. He dodges the mace and attempts to catch the meal with both hands. Cartilage crunches as the force bends his thumbs back, and his body wilts beneath the force. I plant a kick to his chest, sending him sprawling into the sandpit, but the others are on me. I sidestep a slicing dagger and narrowly duck a swinging mace intent on removing all of my teeth from my skull. But I am the sudden sandstorm. Keeping my back to the wall, I bludgeon another with a backhanded mace to the ribs and send him careening into the wall, knocking smaller meals to the ground in a clatter. The path to the stairs is open. Rough hands grab me, my mace, denying my escape. I release the iron flange and nearly trip over a fallen meal, but pull a song off the wall just in time to deflect a thrown dagger that would have taken me in the back. I shove the shield into one, driving him into the sandpit, then thrust its pointed-tipped bulk into the throat of another. I release it to grab a heavier song from the wall, all the while retreating towards my escape. Shield before me, meal raised, I back toward the stairs, but the ivories, seeing what I'm doing, run around the gout to cut off my escape. With a grunt, I shove my shield into the nearest ivory and swing my meal down atop another's head. I don't follow through, releasing it to run toward the stone steps. I have a lead on the ivories running to cut me off. I can make it. 2 steps at a time, I bound. Arms and legs pump in time with the wrath of my heartbeat as my anger burns my blood like a Mancoran fire accelerant. Footsteps give chase, but I am faster. Not all of Gadastone will be at the festivities, and those who hear my shout will come. The ivories will flee, and I, with a full breath stored in my lungs, ready to shout as I crest the stairs, my mouth opens, but my tongue betrays me, because whoever sent the ivories to claim me didn't send 9 men. 3 more stand sentry above me, walling off my escape as effectively as the Kadeshi Mountains confined the miasma to the Kigari Desert. I blink, but they only stare from atop their veils, shamsheers drawn and angled down at me. The quicksand I've knelt in, bowing to the Ventari for their permission to continue to exist, finally swallows me. The black sun they labeled me as finally sets, and in my twilight, there is no beauty in the western sky, no cascading oranges, vibrant purples, or velvety pinks to compete for dominance over the final breaths of light. No. The black sun sets absent spectacle, absent honor, absent dignity. Please. My son. A garrote seizes my neck. Strangling my words, it drags me into the depths of what was once my haven, but now will be my tower of silence. My fingers claw at the silk-thin wire around my throat, but my fingernails only scratch my skin, unable to pry the length from my windpipe. In quick succession, my heels flail, reaching for purchase on the stone steps. One by one, they fall away, unable or unwilling to help a desperate man. The light of the night sky fades, and I'm back within the stone walls of Sunstar. Something collides with the side of my head. The blood in my mouth and the distortion of sound are nothing compared to the spinning stars that swirl atop the sands of my mind. Disoriented, I'm flung. The relief from the release of the tension on my throat is quickly replaced by the hard truth of gravity. I fall, face first, into the sandpit. Already gasping for breath, the impact jars any and all wind from my lungs. I choke, but the currents are denied. My Ashahai cores are crippled, and no matter how hard I try to draw breath, my lungs don't inflate. White pillars advance like columns of crumbling stone to tower and fall upon me. I try to defend myself, but impact throttles my existence. Kicks to my ribs, stomps on my chest, fists to my head. The fiend of agony opens its maw to my retreating consciousness, inviting me to enter past its gnashing teeth and succumb to the sweet release of absolution. My ears ring like the drums that once echoed within these walls, encouraging the heroism to do good and right for all. Now, it serves only as a reminder for how far I've fallen. My eyes, too swollen to fully open, struggle to focus on the white tower that looms over me. My throat, too wounded to speak, can't object as he pins my wrist to the sand and kneels atop of my arm. He holds something in his fingers with one hand and reaches for my chin with the other, squeezing my jaw to force my mouth open. An ivory with a blood-speckled veil pours a vial's contents down my throat. I have no resistance, less as the paralytic toxin takes hold. None, as a black sack is placed over my head. My heart breaks. Not for me. I deserve this. But if my interpretation of the Tajin cards is correct, then this is what they did to him. My boy. Oh, Tarash. There's nothing I can do as they lift me from the sands of my Zerkana and deliver me to my death in the miasma.